My guest today is Kate Lundquist, founder and principal of North Shore Prep Academy, a K to 8 hybrid school for advanced learners located in Mandeville, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans. Kate received a bachelor's degree in secondary mathematics education from Louisiana State University and a master's degree in educational leadership from the University of Louisiana in Monroe. She taught high school math and physics in the public school system before founding her hybrid school in 2015. Today, North Shore Prep Academy has 75 students enrolled. Kate Lundquist, welcome to the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you for all you do to bring awareness to our hybrid school, micro school community and movement. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, that's so kind. Thanks, Kate. It was great to meet you in person recently in Atlanta for the annual National Hybrid Schools Conference. And I'm just thrilled to be able to talk with you even further on the podcast and let others
Yes.
know about your journey from public school teacher to founder, and all of that, all that's entailed with that journey. So, let's start though with the origin story of what made you study education in college and graduate school, and ultimately decide to go into teaching.
I think I have always wanted to be a teacher, from the time I was very little, always just playing school at home, trying to give my sister homework. And I specifically always loved math. And so the two just kind of, that was the choice that came together was to go into being a math teacher, and never really saw a non-traditional path in my future, thought that that is kind of what I would do. When I got my master's in educational leadership, I anticipated a future career in school administration, the traditional route. And it wasn't until my oldest daughter got ready to start kindergarten and looking for school options for her that I just wasn't quite satisfied with sending her to the local public school that was all day, full 5 days a week. When I was in kindergarten, public school was a half day, and that's not an option anymore. And I just felt like it was too much time for her to be away from home. And so we were exploring other options. She was in a 3 day a week pre K that we loved, and I just wanted that. I wanted that to continue. I still wanted her to have the school experience, and but I also wanted to have more influence over her and her education. So that's when we started the school. And she just graduated ninth grade, finished ninth grade. So we just finished year 10, and it has definitely been a journey.
Wow. So she finished grade 9 in your hybrid school?
Yeah, so we have always been kind of K through seventh.
Okay.
This year we actually added eighth grade, and so she's kind of been my guinea pig to go a
Yeah.
year ahead. I test things out on her and then bring
Yeah.
it to school. So, but yeah, she's been with me the whole time.
Great. And so the plan is presumably for her to graduate from North Shore Prep Academy.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
we have our high schoolers. The plan is to grow it with them, and they're all enrolled. We partner with a program where the kids graduate high school with an associate's degree.
Hmm.
So she just took 15 college credit hours in ninth grade, and we'll continue that dual enrollment program.
There's so much that I want to dig into, but while we're on the kind of the topic of high school and you're kind of building up a high school to expand your program, I'd love to just dig in on that a little bit further. Because I know a lot of micro school founders today kind of start at the K to 6 level or the K to 8 level, often like you, because they're wanting to serve their elementary school age children and bring others along with them. And, I hear sometimes that they're either intimidated by the idea of expanding to high school or just uncertain on how to do it. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about maybe some of these partnerships and the community college connection, dual enrollment options that make a high school micro school more possible today.
Yes, especially my community of learners, we target strictly advanced learners. So all of my students really are college bound, high academics. And so for me to provide what I felt like they needed to be best prepared for post-secondary education, was to connect with colleges, that could give them a jump start. So we have partnered with a virtual program, and we're essentially a learning pod. So our high schoolers still come in person to North Shore Prep Academy 3 days a week, and we have a learning coach to help facilitate them and their learning. But they are taking courses online.
Great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the structure of North Shore Prep Academy as a hybrid school. You were telling me before we hit record that in Louisiana, you're sort of considered this non-public school not seeking state approval. It's sort of its own category. And the not seeking state approval phrase is important because that's its own category of you're choosing to be independent, and is similar to how families would go about registering as homeschoolers. So maybe tell us a little bit about the structure of North Shore Prep Academy. How often are you meet? How are students coming to you? What is the curriculum like? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so we meet 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then we give the kids at home assignments to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, with their parents being the supervisor of that portion of it. So we try to break out the curriculum to where when they're here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're doing the parts that require the group and the teacher, kind of more the interactive part of it. And the Tuesday, Thursday part is more of the individual practice bookwork part of it.
So I'm jumping back to the high school question
Sure, yeah.
because there is so much overlap, and in Louisiana it sounds like even more overlap between again these non-public schools not seeking state approval and homeschooling. For the high school students enrolled in North Shore Prep, will their transcript be from North Shore Prep Academy and they would be applying to colleges because you said everyone's sort of college bound, as a student of North Shore Prep Academy, or would it be a homeschool transcript? I guess what would that
No,
look like?
so
Yeah,
they're actually enrolled in a Louisiana public state charter virtual school.
got it. Okay.
So we physically house them a few days a week, but that is who they will get their diploma and their transcript from.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that just shows all of the options available now, especially to founders, hybrid school, micro school founders. There's virtual charter schools, there's private online schools, there's in-person dual enrollment options through local community colleges, as well as virtual options. There's just so much that makes the high school possible. So let's talk more about your student population because you mentioned that you're serving advanced learners. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so all of our kiddos place in the 60th percentile or higher on nationally norm reference tests for admission. And so, that brings a different environment when you're learning with like-minded peers. It is nice. These kids, advanced learners, do need something different from a teacher in a classroom environment. They don't necessarily need a teacher to just give them information. They are great at comprehending. They hear something once, they got it. They're ready to move on. They want to see value in what they're doing. They don't appreciate what they would perceive as busy work or something like that. So, it is nice to have them all together in the same environment with teachers who are teaching to the type of style of learner that they are. And we didn't actually start out that way. That was part of
Okay,
my
yeah. Yeah,
journey,
tell
was
us.
kind of I think when I started I was going to try to be the right school for every kid, um, which
Interesting.
is which I can't do. And every kid needs to find the right school for them. And I think it took some humility to realize that some kids' needs would be better met somewhere else, and that there's a certain kid whose needs I can meet. And so just kind of narrowing our niche to that specific demographic has been good for the success of the school.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that because Kate, in some ways, you are a veteran now. Your hybrid school is 10 years old, which means that you have so much more experience and perspective compared to a lot of the newer founders who have launched their schools and spaces over the past couple of years. So you again have that understanding of what it takes to launch and maybe pivot in certain ways a new program. What were those early days like when you opened in 2015, and how have things changed in addition to kind of honing in on the target population?
Yeah, there were certainly a lot of had I known then what I know now
Yeah, tell us.
moments. If I could start a new school all over today, it would be a totally different experience. Coming from being a teacher to a business owner, all of that had, of
Yeah.
course, its challenges. But initially, we were more of, I would say, a homeschool resource center. So our students more identified as traditional homeschoolers. Our class menu was very a la carte. So we had some kids coming just for math, some just for science. We had a lot of extra um, elective type classes. And I felt like we had a lot of breadth, but not as much depth. So we were trying, I felt like trying to do too many things for too many people
Hmm.
and not providing the quality that I had envisioned.
Hmm.
So it kind of took us taking a step back. We had gotten up to 150 students, K through 12,
Wow.
and we're doing a lot of different things. And so we kind of rebranded. This was in 2019. We made this like redirection change to be North Shore Prep Academy, targeting just advanced learners. And not only have I seen that be more successful for the kids, it's been better for my own personal work-life balance and for our teachers. Um, but it's definitely been a journey.
Yeah. So you said, if you had known then what you know now, it sounds like maybe you would have been more targeted in terms of the population you were going to serve. What other lessons learned would wish you had told your more junior self or other newcomers who are just starting schools? What are some of those what is that wisdom that you could
Yeah,
share?
I think it's that importance of just really finding your identity as a school and being transparent and upfront about who you are, what you can do, what you can't do, what you can provide. And, knowing that the people who are looking for that are going to find you. I think initially, because it is a business at the bottom, at the end of the day, you're worried about filling seats and you need revenue. And so sometimes you may want to um, make excuses for some of your values or for some
Mm,
of your identity. All in good intentions. You want to
sure.
help everyone, and I would find myself, uh, there wasn't a lot of hybrid schools when I started. So I would get a lot of kids who were not being successful in public school for all sorts of different reasons. And I hear these stories about, um, from families who just want to find help for their children. And I would want to take them all on, thinking I can help everyone. And just quickly realizing that I can't help everyone. And so, um, just us honing in on our identity and staying true to that has been helpful.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times kind of going from public school teacher to business owner. What was that like in the beginning and kind of how has the business side of things been for you?
Yeah, a lot of Googling, like how to get a business license and
Yeah.
um, a lot of just learning on my own, asking friends and just taking it one step at a time. We did get an SBA loan when we first opened,
Hmm.
which helped us launch initially. So that was helpful, and just figuring it out as we go along.
Yeah, and that's interesting that the SBA, Small Business Administration loan, was that relatively straightforward? Did they treat you like any other small business? Were there sort of additional hoops where you were a hybrid school or some kind of innovative
It was
education
a
model?
fairly easy
Yeah.
process. I worked with the Center for Economic Development at a local university, and they have programs to help, free programs to help small
Yeah.
business owners. So they helped me write a business plan. They helped me write the loan documents that I needed. And so it was a fairly easy process.
Great. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your curriculum approach, especially where you're focused on college-bound advanced learners. I often hear from listeners that they want to hear more details from the founders that I interview on, what are the curriculum resources you're using and how are you kind of personalizing the education in these hybrid school models. So if you could share a little bit more about that, I'm sure my listeners and viewers would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of the curriculum choices we've made are traditional homeschool curriculums that we've kind of tailored to a classroom environment. I have 10 teachers, and our K through second graders kind of have a primary core teacher. And then they branch out for, we have art, music, and Spanish. They each have a different teacher for. But
Mm,
starting in third grade, we have a different teacher for every subject. So my math teacher teaches third through seventh grade math. And my science teacher, same thing. And so the kids could potentially have the same math teacher for 5 years, and that math teacher only does math. They're experts in their field, and they kind of know what came before, what comes after. They really get to know the kids over those 5 years. Um, so we kind of divide the content like that so that we're getting the most out of our teachers. But curriculum, I mean, I can give you specific curriculum that we use for math. We like Singapore math.
great.
Um, for K through five, sixth through seventh, we kind of developed our own. I'm a former math teacher, so
Yeah.
our own math program to help them prepare to start taking, ninth grade algebra one classes.
Hmm.
Um, we use IEW, the Institute for Excellence in Writing, for our
Perfect.
writing curriculum. It's very strong, as well as a program called Growing with Grammar, for grammar. We use Bookshark is kind of our history/reading curriculum. So it's a literature-based history program. Our kids read tons of books all about the historical period that they're learning about. Um, we use Pearson's Interactive Science for our science curriculum. And we have our Spanish teacher is amazing. So they take Spanish 3 days a week, which isn't an option in our local, elementary schools. So by the time they finish seventh grade, they're taking the equivalent of high school Spanish too, and are doing so well in that. We start with song school Spanish in the elementary levels, so very vocabulary heavy. In third grade, we start introducing them to the grammar. Um, I think I covered all the main
That's great.
subjects.
And
But we,
what
we
is
we we looked for curriculum that was more advanced, as far as like standards wise, ahead of what our traditional schools are doing, or that are more challenging, maybe not in an accelerated way, but in a problem solving, critical thinking type of way.
yeah. And is North Shore Prep Academy secular, faith-based? What is your focus
Secular.
there?
Hmm.
Yeah, and so that's something I think unique too. A lot of hybrid schools tend to be faith-based, and so interesting that you have the secular model there as well. And of course, that doesn't preclude any faith-based families from participating.
Absolutely not. We live
Yeah.
in South Louisiana, and I think our demographic matches the area that we live in, predominantly Christian, Protestant area. I would say 99% of our students and teachers are the same. Um, but we've just chosen to use a secular curriculum to let
Yeah.
everybody teach those values or religious education at home how they see fit. And it doesn't exclude anyone in doing so.
Yeah. So, what is attracting families to you now, especially once you sort of pivoted from trying to be everything to everyone in those early days to now being much more targeted in terms of your student population? What attracts families? What are you hearing from them that they're looking for?
I think it's both the hybrid model and the advanced academics. We actually just sent out a parent satisfaction survey this year. We're waiting for the results, but one of the questions we asked was, what were the things that you valued when choosing a school? Was it the hybrid schedule? Was it the academics? Was it the social community? We work really hard to create a school culture, family centered. We do a lot of field trips and, extra things, family campouts and talent shows and, things like that. Um, was it we have made an intentional decision, other than our eighth graders in the virtual school, our K through seventh is extremely low tech. So
Yeah.
was that what that drew you? So we're interested to see how those results come in. But mostly the stories I hear are that the traditional school is not meeting their needs academically. Their kids are advanced and end up being the class helper, or
Mm.
instead of given work appropriate for them. So they're looking to place their kids with other kids who learn the same way they do.
Great. And so Louisiana is also now one of the states that has embraced universal school choice, one of the 16 states since 2021 to embrace universal eligibility for school choice policies that enable a portion of education allocated funding to follow students to their preferred educational environment. I know you're sort of in a phase-in period over the next couple of years in Louisiana in terms of getting toward full eligibility for all K-12 students. But North Shore Prep Academy is an approved provider for families who want to access your program through an education savings account. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the landscape there around school choice policies and how you feel like families at North Shore Prep Academy can benefit from them.
Yes, we are so excited. So grateful that our state superintendent is very pro school choice, very pro parent choice, um, and hopeful for the future of this. You know, I have sensed some fear in the local homeschool community, the local public school community, of course, some opposition towards it, worried that with money comes regulation and not wanting that their homeschool freedoms to be taken away, which I totally understand and support. We don't want more regulation either. In fact, we just got a bill opposed from the Education Committee in the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago by speaking out against extra regulation on private schools. So we're hopeful that Louisiana is headed in the right direction. And yeah, since we are an approved service provider, our families will be able to access Gator. Louisiana Gator is the name of the ESA program. They'll be able to use those funds to come to our school, which will be a big benefit. You know, because we're a hybrid school, a lot of our families are on a one income household. They have to have a parent at home, you know, at least part time during the week, and so it'll be a big blessing for a lot of them who are making sacrifices for their kids.
Yeah, and I mean, do you feel like it will also expand enrollment for you because it would make North Shore Prep Academy even more financially accessible to more families?
I think so. You know, with the hybrid model, like I said, it still is going to require the right type of family and family environment to want to
Yeah.
make that transition. Um, so it could. I hope so. I hope it
Yeah.
opens up options in general. Maybe it's not North Shore Prep, but maybe it just opens the option of choice that people didn't even realize they had an option.
So great. And as I said, 16 states now with universal eligibility in school choice programs, Louisiana being one of them. Some states require, as you mentioned, sort of all of these regulations. In certain states, you have to be an accredited private school in order to get access to the ESA programs, and that could limit innovative education models like yours, these hybrid models or micro schools. So it's great to hear that you were able to successfully push back against proposed legislation in Louisiana to limit the type of providers who could participate in these school choice programs. Because really, as you know, families want this sort of freedom and flexibility that these creative schooling options provide. And they don't want to be, as you say, you sort of don't want to be a traditional private school.
Yes, and
Because
my
you want that
conversation.
family connection, right?
Yeah, that was the conversation with the state representative, was that we can't have a school choice program if there aren't choices. And we're not going to have the innovation and the choices available if there's too many regulations around it. So I hope that many more hybrid schools open up, and that, you know, I'm a big proponent, like I said earlier, about the right school for the right kid, because every parent should be able to shop around and find the right fit for them.
So, what are you seeing in Louisiana and kind of the greater New Orleans area with regard to some of these innovative models like yours, micro schools, hybrid schools, homeschooling collaboratives, of course? New Orleans, since Hurricane Katrina, has had a robust charter school network in the city of New Orleans. So there's been some school choice in sort of the public sector there. But what are you seeing, especially among these emerging schooling models?
Yeah, there's quite a few in my community. We're all kind of a little different. You know, I
Yeah,
always encourage families to go visit all of them and
yeah.
see what they offer and see what they're likes. They all offer different schedules. Some are 5 days a week, some are 2 days a week, some are a la carte. Some target at-risk, you know, kids. Some target, you know, different types of learners. And so it's good to have choice, and there's a lot of small programs just like mine. At
And
least on the North Shore. Actually, in New Orleans, there's not as many, surprisingly. There's a
interesting.
big traditional private school community, a lot of Catholic schools, but not as many of the hybrid micro schools, at least that I know of.
Yeah, in New Orleans proper. That's interesting. So more of a suburban phenomenon maybe now, but hopefully that changes again as these school choice policies really take root. I'd love to hear kind of your reflections, Kate, from being again a high school, public school, traditional math and physics teacher, and now an education entrepreneur working in more of this innovative education space. What do you feel like is one of the primary differences between kind of the traditional educational model and hybrid school, micro school models like North Shore Prep Academy?
The kids' attitudes towards learning. You know, one of my issues when I taught public school was, especially by high school, the general mood is we don't like school. This isn't fun. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be doing anything. Kids would always ask when I would assign work, how many points is this worth? Because that's going to determine how much effort I put into it or if I do it at all. And I would just be frustrated. Like, why aren't we excited to learn this? Because it's good for you and just for the sake of learning, you know? And the number one comment I get when we give tours and guests come to visit the school is the kids all seem so happy. You know,
Yes.
they're happy to be there, they're happy to learn, they're excited to learn. The hybrid model puts some ownership in the kids and parents' hand of the learning. I found in the public school system there was a lot of spoon feeding. You know, the kids had to have a study guide for every test, and um, the hybrid model makes that independent day, the Tuesday, Thursday, they really have to kind of take learning into their own hands and make sure that they're doing, the parents have to pull their weight and making sure their kids are doing what they are supposed to be doing. Um, so it's just a totally different approach to the value of school and the value of education in general. Has been such a pleasant change from teaching in the public school system.
Hmm. So you're 10 years in, running your hybrid school. What do you think the next 10 years will bring for North Shore Prep Academy?
Oh, goodness. Well, we would love to relocate. We're looking for a new building currently. That's the next, there would be room for growth at that point. We currently lease the building that we're in, and our lease is up this summer. So we are looking. We haven't found the right location yet, but that's a big challenge in and of itself is to
Mm,
find a facility that can house us and that meets all the building codes necessary for a school. So that is in the near future, hopefully. And then we'll just keep expanding our high school program. Maybe eventually we'll take them off of the virtual in some way. That is an option. So we'll see
yeah. So then you'll be a math and physics high school teacher
all over
again.
again. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. And so are the constraints now to growth really just the space? Do you feel like there's the demand from families in your community to grow, but you just don't have the physical space?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is our current problem right now is physical space. I can only put 12 kids in a room. The room's just not big enough,
Yeah.
you know, for more than three tables. So we need some extra room to grow. We also would love to have, I'm calling it a cafetorium, gym, you know, some large gathering space. We don't have that in our current location. So when we do school-wide activities or events, we will rent a local church or go to a park or something like that. So it would be nice to have everything under one roof.
And have you started looking for location? Because I hear
Oh
from
yeah.
founders that this is one of the biggest obstacles to getting started, and also in your case to growing. What are some of the challenges you're encountering as you're searching for space?
Yeah, just commercial property in general. There's not a lot of it available in our area. Of course, I could go way out of town, but then that wouldn't be super convenient
Mm,
for my current families. So, and then the property that is available is not necessarily in the budget, right? So,
yeah. Yeah.
finding that sweet spot. We need to maybe think of some creative options. You know, we're looking into maybe renting space from somebody who's not using it during the week, like a church, or partnering with someone or real estate investor. We're open to all ideas at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of those sort of early challenges continue to be challenges as you grow and scale your programs.
Very true. We always keep saying, once we get this figured out, then
Yeah,
things will operate, on their own. And then there's always the next thing. Well, once we get that worked out, once we get that worked out. So just appreciating being in the moment and, um, knowing that we're never going to arrive.
right. Yeah, there's always entrepreneurial challenges, but that's what sort of keeps it interesting and dynamic. Again, you've been doing this for a while. You talked a little bit about had you known what you know now when you first started, you would have been a little bit more intentional in terms of the population you would have served. But I wonder what other kind of high level advice you would give to, let's say, someone listening who's a public school teacher, just as you were, who is looking to do something new and different and recognizes that all of this momentum around emerging schooling models. What would you say in terms of encouragement for them?
Yeah, I would definitely say go for it. I think also maybe some early marketing. I would think I kind of kept everything under wraps. I was waiting to have the big school, the sign, the money, have it all ready to go before I kind of like put anything out there. And looking back, I think it would have been fun to put it out along the way. Hey guys, I'm working on this project. Hey, we're looking for a space. Hey, we're doing, and kind of keep whether it's social media or whatever involved, and sort of create a following before you actually ever
Mm,
start. Um, and then kind of people know what you're doing and what you're up to. But yeah, and I kind of thought that I had to have a lot of capital and to start. And I'm always amazed when I go to these hybrid school conferences about these founders who are just starting with 3 or 4 kids in the basement,
yeah.
and you really can start that way. And so don't let fear hold you back. Don't let comparison hold you back. It is hard sometimes when you are around other founders. I always come home to these conferences with all these ideas and things I want to incorporate, but sometimes I have to examine them and say, you know what, this really doesn't fit our vision or our model. And so we can't do what everybody else is doing all the time. So don't try to make the school that somebody else is making. That's what's going to set your school apart, is what makes your school unique.
Ah, great advice. And you mentioned start building a following, let people know what you're doing, what you're building, leveraging social media. So, Kate, if my listeners and viewers want to be one of your followers and follow your journey at North Shore Prep Academy, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
So I really should take my own advice in this. That is one thing our social media presence is not heavy at all. Marketing is not something we've done a ton of. Would love to
But
do
you're
more of
also
that.
full. I mean, that's part of
Exactly.
it.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
But so we just have a Facebook page, North Shore Prep Academy, and it's not quite as up to date as I would love. We have a private page for our parents, like a group, and that's where we're sharing all the fun pictures. And I always tell myself we got to put some of these on the public page so that other people can see what we're doing. But it tends to not get as much attention, unfortunately. But happy to talk with anybody who wants to send me an email, kate@northshoreprep.com. Um, Happy to connect with anyone.
Yeah, and again, the website is northshoreprep.com. Some wonderful resources there, giving a greater sense of what it is that you're building and the students that you're serving. So, Kate Lundquist, what a pleasure to have you on the Liberated podcast. Best wishes for your future growth and a thriving learning community.
Thank you so much for having me.